All right. Let's see. Twitter is awake. And let's make sure that YouTube and Rockfin are awake. YouTube's waking up. Rockfin, where are you? Rockfin is awake. Oh, that was pretty much a tie. I'm gonna call that a tie. That was a tie. YouTube and Rockfin tied for second. Twitter's always first. Twitter is always first. YouTube and Rockfin, though, they're in a battle for second. We got a lot to talk about today. I'm just going to go ahead and get started as folks are trickling in here. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good day for everyone listening to the podcast later. Hope everything is going well. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. We're coming at you on a Friday. And you're even getting glasses, Ron. This is weird on multiple levels. Glasses, Ron, on a Friday. For everyone listening to the podcast later, you're like, you have your glasses on? We didn't know you ever took them off. But for those of you watching it on video, yep, glasses, Ron, on a Friday. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be traveling this weekend. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about that in a second here. But we got a lot to talk about. First of all, we got some breaking news in the student loan forgiveness department. We got an update on the railroad strike. It's still looming, by the way, which we talked about before, and we're talking about it again. And a new strike is happening. That's kind of interesting. Kind of an interesting. What's the word for it? Anyway, a kind of interesting connection to what I got going on in my life. But anyway, we're gonna talk about all that and some good broadband news from the election that you're probably not going to hear anywhere else other than a show like this one. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's start with the breaking stuff. Student loan forgiveness. So as you probably heard, a court struck down Joe Biden's student loan debt forgiveness plan, which of course was crumbs. They're going to forgive about $10,000, which barely touches interest for most people, but it's better than absolutely nothing. But a court struck that down. So the crumbs of crumbs of crumbs we were going to maybe get is now potentially nothing because a court struck it down. And interestingly enough, the person who proposed the lawsuit had PPP loans forgiven. So, for me, but not for thee. That's the American way. Socialism for the rich, rugged neoliberalism for everyone else. Enjoy it. Gotta love it. Don't you? Anyway, here's the thing. Here's what's going on. So this is from CNN. What student loan borrowers, stumbled over that one, need to know after a federal court struck down Biden's forgiveness program. So student loan borrowers are now waiting indefinitely. Gotta love it. I mean, that's what student loan borrowers have been doing for years now because, well, we're going to cancel it. We're not going to cancel it. They allowed this predatory loan system to happen where you are taking advantage of young people. They were promised a better future. They were promised that this was what they were supposed to do for their future. They did everything right. And because of predatory loan practices that should be illegal, they're just screwed over for generations. This is generations of people under crippling amounts of debt. And that's why people aren't able to buy houses. People aren't able to start families. This has literally crippled generations of people. And Joe Biden could forgive it with the stroke of a pen. Of course, the courts would fight it because they're even fighting this measly 10,000. So here's what's going on. Student loan borrowers are now waiting indefinitely to see if they'll receive debt relief under President Biden's forgiveness program after a federal judge in Texas struck down the program. Now, the Department of Justice immediately appealed to the Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, but that case will have to play out before the Biden administration can cancel any federal student loan debt under the program. While the Biden administration has faced several legal challenges to the student loan forgiveness program since it was announced in August, the ruling on Thursday is the most significant setback, prompting the Department of Education to stop accepting applications. So they're not even accepting applications anymore. Biden's program was already on hold due to a separate legal challenge, but the administration had at least been accepting applications. So, in summary, if you are waiting to find out what's going to go down, you're just going to have to wait. Right now, summary, they're battling it out in court. That's what's going on. They're just fighting it in court, and they're going to keep fighting it in court until they're done fighting it in court. It's tough to even predict what could happen. I mean, it's such a small thing. Like you think, like at the very minimum. And isn't it interesting, folks, that of course this happened right after the midterms? Right after the midterms, this freaking happened. Wasn't before, right after. Right after the midterms, where, leading up to the midterms, they were all talking about all of Biden's great accomplishments. This was listed among them. He kept his promise to forgive crumbs of crumbs of crumbs of crumbs. He promised up to 50, by the way. We got 10. He was talking 50. We got 10. Well, we might not get anything. There might not be anything. What a racket. So that's the update there. Texas court struck it down. They're fighting it in the Court of Appeals. In the meantime, they're not accepting applications. All over a predatory loan practice system that should be completely illegal in every way, shape, and form. Completely illegal. So let's go to the railroad strike now. So we covered the railroad strike on this show. Now, Joe Biden said that they prevented the railroad strike. On Get Your News On With Ron, we said that's not accurate. They haven't agreed on a settlement yet. They just agreed that the workers won't strike while they're negotiating. That's not avoiding a strike. That's just basically avoiding an immediate move. Like, hey, will you not strike while we're negotiating? Okay, we won't strike while you're negotiating. That's not avoiding a strike. But Joe Biden said he avoided a strike. Isn't it amazing? And this isn't limited to Joe Biden, obviously. But if you just went by things presidents said, how ill-informed you would be. Everything from mission accomplished to we prevented the strike to hope and change to we're going to end the wars. Remember Trump said he was going to end the wars. How'd that work out? Obama said hope and change. What did he change? You were hoping he might change something and he didn't. I mean, it's amazing. Podcasters are held to a higher standard than the president of the United States. You ever notice that? Like, if any podcaster was completely off base and wrong as often as a president, they wouldn't have a show anymore because no one would freaking listen to it. And if they were working for any entity, they would be fired. And that's not to say like podcasters. I mean, I get stuff wrong. Everyone gets stuff wrong. I've been wrong about things over the years. I'll be wrong in the future. The things that I was wrong about years ago and have retracted, I still get trolled for. That's just one of those things. But a president, you could say mission accomplished and still be a celebrated painter years down the road. It's amazing. Like, it really is. I hope someday we hold politicians to the same standards that we hold podcasters and comedians to. I really do. I don't think I'll ever see that day, but I do yearn for it. So anyway, that's what was really going on with the strike. Here's an update on all that. U.S. railroads, this is from Reuters. U.S. railroads are, where'd the headline go? Oh, here we go. U.S. Railroads Union extends strike deadline until at least December 4th. So a group representing major railroads in a union that voted to reject a new contract said Wednesday they had agreed to extend a potential strike deadline until at least December 4th. So basically, they're still just saying, all right, we're not going to strike yet, but we're not agreeing to this contract either. The National Carriers Conference Committee and the International Brotherhood of Teamsters that represents 11,000 workers extended the current cooling off period that was previously set to expire on November 19th. The NCCC said the extension eliminates the threat of a near-term freight rail service disruption. Basically, they're saying we won't do it before Thanksgiving, but we might do it before the December holidays. That's basically what they're saying. By choosing December 4th, they're basically like, okay, Thanksgiving, we'll give you that, but that's our new deadline. So the holidays. Personally, I think that if they don't reach a agreement by December 4th, they need to go on strike. Otherwise, they're not going to reach an agreement that they're happy with. That's what's going to happen. Because this is the second time they've agreed to an extension while they're negotiating. Don't give it a third time. You got to say we're striking. And I know that's going to inconvenience everybody, right? Because look, the holidays are coming up, and your gifts for your loved ones might be stuck on some train somewhere or some ship or whatever. But you know what? It's a small price to pay for living wages in this freaking country. And it's not the strikers' fault. It's the freaking establishment's fault for letting it get to this point. It's the ruler's fault. They shouldn't need to strike. A rail shutdown could freeze almost 30% of U.S. cargo shipments by weight, stoke inflation, cost the American economy as much as $2 billion per day. That's, by the way, this is a lesson. This is what your labor really generates. Our labor could cost this economy $2 billion per day. This is why, if you want to see true systemic change, it only happens via a strike. It only happens via a strike. So let's see what else is going on here. BMWED said without an extension, railroads could have begun ceasing rail operations within the next few days, and suggested that would represent a blatant attempt to cause panic and economic harm to the railroad's customers and the U.S. economy right before the Thanksgiving holiday. Yeah, so meet their demands. They're striking for better wages and better conditions. They're striking because they don't get days off and they're working weeks at a time with no days off. I mean, you look at the conditions that these workers are under, whether it be the rail workers, whether it be Nabisco, whether it be wherever else, and you're thinking, this is ridiculous. How is this going on in the United States of America? Well, because we have horrible laws like right to work that puts people in these horrible conditions where they're not making living wages and they're working 6 and 7 days a week. It's straight up inhumane. We have surpassed the robber baron days. Wage discrepancy between the rich and the poor is remnant of ancient Egypt. We are in feudalism. We're not knocking on feudalism's door. We're here. This is neo-feudalism, and it could get a lot worse. It's really bad now. It could get worse. So these strikes, I mean, they're the only thing that's going to take us the other way. You can't vote your way out of this. Everyone showed up and voted. Well, not everyone, but people showed up and voted. And guess what? That student loan debt forgiveness was just struck down in court. You know, and again, I'm not saying I vote. I'm not discouraging people from voting. I'm just saying there needs to be a lot more than that. Voting is one small tool in the toolkit of change. That's why we're not even really talking about election result. We talked about the election. We did it. We already did it. This is what's going on. This is what's going on now. So that's an update. They're still negotiating, and at least several unions are not happy with the contracts. I think some other ones. Well, let me go back to the article because I think some of the unions might have been okay with the contract, but the bigger ones are definitely not. So another union representing 4,900 locomotive machinists, roadway mechanics, and facility maintenance personnel on Saturday narrowly ratified the tentative contract agreement. The union was the 7th of 12th to approve the deal. Well, BMWED and the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen Union, representing more than 6,000 members, voted against the deal. The deal included a 24% compounded wage increase over a 5-year period and 5 annual $1,000 lump sum payments. So chances are the people who rejected the deal, it was probably more about conditions. Because that seems 24%, that seems relatively decent. But there's probably more to it than that. So we'll see what happens here. But right now, the new deadline is December 4th. And when you hear people on the corporate media, especially if it's Joe Biden, which it likely will be, saying we prevented a strike, just remember what that really means. It means the same thing it meant the first time. They didn't prevent a strike. They just prevented a strike while they're negotiating. My personal opinion, if it's not met by December 4th, you got to strike. You can't say, okay, we'll negotiate longer a third time. You already conceded twice. It happens a third time, you got to say we're striking, and you got to go on strike, and it's got to disrupt the winter holidays. You know, and remember, folks, if it inconveniences you some, and there's a good chance it will, the holidays are coming up. I don't want to see anyone inconvenienced on the holidays, of course not. But you know what else I don't want to see? I don't want to see a society where people are breaking their backs and they're not being treated with respect and dignity and given a quality of life. And that's what's going on with labor in this country, and it's been going on for years, and it has reached a freaking breaking point. We've reached the breaking point. people can't take anymore, and they shouldn't. People deserve to work an honest job and get paid a living wage, not a surviving wage, a living wage, and have a quality of life. What does that mean, a quality of life? Well, it means that you're able to go to the doctor when you're sick and not go bankrupt to do so. It means you have educational opportunities for yourself and your children. And it means college should be free. And it means that you should be able to go on a decent vacation every year. And you should get reasonable time off. You shouldn't just be working nonstop with the only finish line in sight when you retire. The retirement age in the U.S. is 67 now. Average lifespan is about 73 years old. So you're supposed to break your back for 6-7 days a week until you're 67 to maybe enjoy 5 years of quality of life on average. It might be a little. It might be like 75, 76, but I heard recently it's down to 73. Having a healthcare crisis will do that in the country, by the way. Richest country in the world, life expectancy in the 70s. It's higher in other places, by the way. So that's an update there. We'll see what happens on December 4th. I think if they don't meet their demands, they got to strike. They got to strike. The workers got to strike. So this is an interesting strike that's happening. Now, full disclaimer, this has to do with the restaurant Medieval Times. The workers at the restaurant Medieval Times are striking. And the reason I thought this was sort of a peculiar timing is because this weekend, Lucian the satirist, my historical interpretation of the writer Lucian, booked our first fair. We got our first fair. I'm going to be in Fresno this weekend. For anyone in Fresno, come to the Kearney Renaissance Fair. It's in Fresno, California. Lucian will be performing on Saturday and Sunday. That's why we're doing the show on Friday, because I'll be at the Renaissance Fair. I'm super excited. Now, full disclaimer, the Renaissance Fairs, at least none of the fairs to my knowledge, definitely not the fair I'm doing this weekend, the Renaissance Fairs have nothing to do with Medieval Times. They are two completely different entities. They are not related in any way, shape, and form. They just happen to offer the similar genre of entertainment, right? Like the Renaissance Fair, you have costumes and Renaissance themed events, and I'm pretty sure they both have jousting. I've actually never been to a Medieval Times. I heard they're fun. I've never been to one. So I can't speak to how fun it is or isn't and how good the food is or isn't. I just know they have like jousting and a royal court, kind of like a Renaissance Fair. But just to be clear here, they are not related in any way other than that. They're two completely separate entities. So that's the only point of connection. But let's check this out. We're gonna peruse this video from More Perfect Union, because what's going on is very sad to see. But it's cool that they won their union time. So we'll read here first. Breaking: Medieval Times workers in California have won their union election. This is the second castle to unionize. Workers told us they perform up to 21 shows a week, are routinely injured, and paid poverty wages. Wow. The performers in stable hands in Buena Park, California, won 27-18. All right, so let's check out this video here. Or check out the audio for all the podcast listeners later.
Welcome, my friends, to Medieval Times, a magical place where you're transported back to the days of knights on horseback jousting.
So yeah, definitely similar to the Renaissance Fair.
Her Majesty, the Queen, here in rural New Jersey.
See my wonderful horses, my lovely falcon, and my brave and noble knight.
As much fun as it is living in the medieval times for a small period of your day. It's not as fun living in the medieval times 365 days a year when it's your job to do it.
In real life, they don't treat their employees so well.
Interesting. So working in medieval conditions.
So Medieval Times it's like dinner theaters, stepping back in time.
All right, we don't need to get the description.
Only the finest restaurant in town.
When Phantom of the Opera closes, we will then be the longest running professional theatrical production in the New York City area.
That's
30
amazing.
years, nothing even close to that, in a theater of that size.
By all accounts, this is a professional show. So it is odd that your performers who are putting on this show are being paid essentially like entry-level workers. Yeah, it is ironic that we play nobility, queens, lords, ladies, and our audience doesn't realize how we go home in a broken car to an apartment with 5 other roommates, hoping you have enough money for food on the table. And it's not to say we expect to be treated like queens, but I expect to be treated like a human being.
They do 21 performances a week. That's a lot. That's a full-time job. And they're not getting paid living wages. So in June, performers in New Jersey announced they were unionizing.
Everything was a lot harder. People who are already struggling are now putting all of their time and effort into this castle, and yet we're still scraping by. And it just felt like something needed to change.
Shortly after they realized that we filed a petition for a union vote, they brought in a labor educator. I believe they paid him $3,200 a day. We found out later on.
It was a punch in the gut, you know, to know that they were willing to spend this much money on someone to tell us that we don't deserve a union.
So they paid somebody to come in. They paid them $3,200 a day to tell the workers not to unionize, to tell all the performers, the stable hands, all these workers, don't unionize. They paid that consultant $3,200 a day instead of meeting with their workers and trying to meet their demands, letting them unionize and meet their demands. There's nothing wrong with having unionized workers if you just treat them right. They're unionizing to make sure you have to treat them right. So acknowledge their union, treat them right, then there's no freaking problem. What does treating them right include? Give them a freaking living wage. It's like she said in the interview, I'm not asking to be treated like royalty. Just treat me like a freaking human being. Treat me like a professional performer. Treat me like a worker. Treat me like somebody doing a full-time job that deserves respect and dignity. But again, this is the United States, and we don't value the arts at all. At all. I mean, we don't value labor either, obviously. We don't value education, but we really don't value the arts. Oh, you're an actor, you're a performer, you should be happy you get paid at all. I mean, that's just fun, isn't it? Yeah, it is fun, but you know what? It's a freaking job. It's a freaking job because guess what? People are coming for that entertainment. And that's how the arts are treated. Musicians are always expected to work for free. Comedians, we are always expected to work for free. And it's really freaking wrong. Now, I will say this, too. I am about to do my first fair this weekend. And my experience, I mean, I will say that the fair in Fresno, I can only speak for myself, but they are treating me very fairly. I am being compensated very fairly. They have been very, very kind and cool. And I'm so excited to do this fair. And I'm so excited to do other fairs. And again, just to be abundantly clear here, the Renaissance Fair circuit is not in any way connected to medieval times. They are two completely separate entities. I just thought it was kind of ironic that this strike is happening and it kind of coincides. Like I happen to be finally doing my first weekend of Lucian at the same time, you know, but that's where the connection begins and ends is all. But it just really, I hope they win. You know, I mean, it's like, I hope they get everything they ask for and they freaking win. And if not, guess what, medieval times, go out of freaking business. And you know what? For everybody, you know, if you like that kind of stuff, and it's cool if you do, I do, obviously. I love Renaissance fairs. I've never been to a medieval times, but you know what? Here's a tip. If you like that kind of stuff, first of all, if you like that kind of stuff, write to your local fair and tell them they should bring in Lucian the Satirist. Seriously. If you're into that, wherever you live in the United States. I mean, I'm going to start with regional fairs. I'm going to start with like fairs in California, but eventually I'd like to go everywhere. So please write to your local fair and write to me too. Let me know Be like, hey, Ron, I live in such and such. We have this fair. I'd love to see you there with Lucian the satirist. So, anyway, side note on that. But go to your local Renaissance fair instead. Honestly, if you're like, man, I love medieval times. Well, if they don't meet their workers' demands and they continue to exploit their workers and exploit their performers, go to the local Renaissance fair instead. Because I know people who work in these Renaissance fairs. I have some experience with it myself now, and I can tell you that they treat people fairly and compensate people fairly. That's why you see so many craftspeople and artisans and performers at the Renaissance fair. So that, and again, I can't speak, to be clear, I can't speak for every single Renaissance fair everywhere. I can't speak that thoroughly, but I can tell you in my experience and in the experience of colleagues I have in that field, some of whom have been with Renaissance fairs for years, over a decade at this point. I have comedian friends of mine who have made careers out of the Renaissance fair circuit, and they are treated very well. I mean, you definitely, you like camp a lot. So if you don't like kind of like a nomadic camping lifestyle, you're not going to like the job, but that's just, that comes with the territory. But yeah, they are treated fairly. They are compensated well for what they do, and they love it. So anyway, yeah, it really sucks that medieval times can't do the same, because if they did, then it would just be more performing opportunities for all of us, wouldn't it? So shout out to the workers at medieval times. I hope they get everything they want and then some. And if they don't, I hope they all find better gigs that treat them fairly, and that the company medieval times goes under. There you go. So let's look at a little bit of good news, folks. In the election, there has been some good news in terms of broadband. And guess where? Well, two different places. The first place might not be the first state you would guess for huge broadband expansion. But remember, keep in mind, where is the most successful municipal broadband project in the country? Chattanooga, Tennessee. They caught onto it a long time ago. And now most of the, pretty much all of the, or not all, but a lot of municipal broadband efforts are in the state of Tennessee now, because they all see what Chattanooga has and they all want it. Chattanooga has some of the fastest internet in the world, and they pay about $65 a month for it on average. Why? Because they have a city-owned grid. They have a city-owned infrastructure that's focused on just being a utility for the people. It's not some big cable entity that's just trying to price gouge and profit as much as possible. So they're able to offer people amazing internet at a reasonable price, and everybody wins. Literally everybody wins. Everyone has great internet. It gives local jobs. It's sustainable. I mean, municipal broadband has 100% success rate. It literally has a 100% success rate. The only instances where it's only able to offer something as good as its big cable competitors is when it's incomplete. Whenever there's municipal broadband projects that aren't finished yet, then they're just as good as big cable. Whenever they're finished, they're better than big cable, and the price is cheaper. So it's literally better internet at a better price. So one of the places that voted to have municipal broadband near Tennessee, Alabama. Alabama Amendment 2, Broadband Internet Infrastructure Funding Amendment. A yes vote supported allowing state and local governments to grant federal awards funds or other state-designated broadband funds to public or private entities to provide or expand broadband internet infrastructure. A no vote opposed allowing state and local governments to grant federal awards funds or other state-designated broadband funds to public or private entities. So this approved. Now, there is some bad news here, and the bad news, or not bad, but concerning. Let's say concerning. The concerning part is this part, or private. Public or private. So, well, it is good this passed because it opens up more funds for broadband development in the state of Alabama. The fact that it's private entities means that big cable could just gobble up all of these state funds. And if we're kind of being a little bit realist here, there's a chance that that could be what happens. People really need to be on the ground and need to be adamant. If you live in Alabama, now is the time to get involved. Go to your local municipality, show up at a city hall meeting, contact your mayor, contact your council members and say, we need municipal broadband in our area. And they just voted to, they just passed to the infrastructure funding amendment. We got to get some public infrastructure. Now's the time to do it, because otherwise, big cable, this will just end up being a giveaway to big cable. So good for Alabama. And guess who else passed one? This one's a little less surprising. I can't say Alabama would have been the first state I guessed, but New Mexico was the second state. Here's New Mexico's. New Mexico Constitutional Amendment 2, authorizing funds for residential services infrastructure amendment. So that goes into residential municipal broadband, which basically means it's for people and not just like for businesses. A yes vote supported authorizing the legislature to appropriate state funds for infrastructure that provides services primarily for residential use, such as internet, electric, natural gas, water, and wastewater, through a majority vote in an echo chamber. A no vote opposed this amendment. So basically, this is for specific municipal broadband and utility-style municipal broadband, which means it's run by your city or municipality or state. So that's awesome. That's specifically muni broadband, but it also goes into other utilities as well. So will all that infrastructure money go to internet? Well, probably not. It'll go to also electric, natural gas, water, and wastewater, but it's all got to go through a majority vote. So if you're in New Mexico, now is the time to push for muni internet funds. So this is good. Again, both of these things are good. It doesn't mean that Alabama and New Mexico are getting amazing municipal broadband tomorrow, but the fact that these amendments pass presents the opportunity for huge municipal broadband in these areas. So, and there's some concerns too, especially on the Alabama one. New Mexico one, not as much, but in the Alabama one, well, there's a chance big cable could just gobble up all these funds if people aren't careful. So there you go. That's an analysis there. Little bit of broadband update. This might be the only show. This might be the only show, probably the only show on YouTube that covered this. Well, I shouldn't say the only one, but yeah. Anyway, and here is a little bit of good news too to end the show today. And by the way, we'll be doing the patron stream after this, where I will get to everyone's super chats. So stay tuned. Right after this, we're going to do the patron stream. And that stream is open to everyone. It's just the replay is only available on Patreon and Rockford Premium. So as soon as we sign off here, I'm going to start a new stream, and that's going to be the patron stream. That's going to be the chatty stream, where I just kind of respond to the chat and I respond to any super chat. So please do leave a super chat or a Rockfin tip. And I will get to it on the next stream here in just a moment. And if you're watching this or listening to the podcast later and you're thinking, I want to be a patron so I can see the post stream and hear the post thoughts, patreon.com/Ron Placone. For a give what you can level, you get all kinds of cool perks, all the patron streams. I'm going to be starting up patron Zoom shows. I will make you a theme song, which makes an awesome holiday gift. And you can watch my performance as Lucian the Satirist. If you're not in Fresno, and I'm not coming to a fair near you anytime soon, you can still watch the show online if you are a patron. And you can also watch my short film, Lucian, which premieres in January. We'll get to that in a second when I plug tour dates. But for now, check out what happened over in Massachusetts. We got some good news up in Massachusetts. They approved single-payer healthcare. Well, they approved basically the question on single-payer healthcare. We'll get into what this means exactly, but it is good news. Question 5 passes in all 20 districts. So here's what this means up in Massachusetts. MassCare put single payer on the ballot in 20 districts as a non-binding public policy question, and the question passed in every district where it appeared. Voters approved single payer healthcare all across the Commonwealth. Some small towns haven't yet reported, and absentee ballots are still being checked. So these numbers are not entirely final, but they are very close. Check the results. So basically, they were questioned. So here's what this is. This is a non-binding ballot initiative. A non-binding public policy question is a question presented to voters in a specific state, senate, or representative district. To get a question on the ballot, you must collect enough signatures. So if passed, legislators are not required to become co-sponsors. However, majority support can be used effectively in campaigns. The ballot alone will not work to move legislators, but it's a great tool to create organization in the district. So basically, this just said do you like? I guess the question was basically, are you in approval of single payer healthcare? Would you like to see legislatures propose actual legislation? And in Western Mass, 75% said yes. In Berkshire, 60%. In Belchertown, Ludlow, and Pelham, 55%. In Representative Michael Flynn's district. Interesting. So you're seeing all the numbers here are over 50%. I'm not going to read all of them here, but throughout the state, with a bunch of names that reference somewhere in England, so many places in Massachusetts, they're just like, this is somewhere in England where the first settlers came and killed all the Native Americans who were here first. And this is another place in England where the settlers came and killed all the people who were here first. So anyway, so that is very cool. That is very cool. So again, these are wins that are calls for further activism. That's what this is. Because this does not give Massachusetts single payer healthcare, just like Alabama's not getting municipal broadband tomorrow. Neither is New Mexico, but the door is open. And that's why organizing is so important, folks. And that's why it is that's why, you know what? Not just as, it is more important. I'm going to say more. It is more important than just voting. Again, I'm not discouraging voting. People are going to say that anyway, but I'm not. I'm just saying you really have to rally for policy. You have to rally to get laws passed. You have to propose ballot initiatives and amendments, and you have to rally your cities for different things, and you have to protest and you have to strike. Those are the biggest tools in the toolkit for change. And this is just proof of it. Guys, tour dates, I got them. First of all, Fresno, going to be at the Renaissance Fair. Come to the Kearney Renaissance Fair in Fresno, California. Lucian's going to be performing on Saturday and Sunday. That's this Saturday and Sunday. Tomorrow and Sunday, folks. January 28th, I will be in Tucson, Arizona. That's a stand-up show and a screening of my film Loner. My short film Loner is going to have its debut screening January 28th in Tucson, Arizona. I'm so excited for that. You can get tickets now at ronplacone.com. If you use the promo code Lucy at checkout, you get discounted tickets, and that's for a limited time. Get them now. That's not going to go on forever. So get them now. Makes a great holiday gift. And it's a Saturday night. So if you're not in Tucson, but you're near it, plan a trip to Tucson. ronplacone.com for tickets. February 10th, Los Angeles, California. My first show of a 3-show residency at the Glendale Room, which is a really killer new space in town. You can get tickets for that now at ronplacone.com. Those dates are February 10th, April 14th, and May 12th. And February 17th and 18th, I'll be in San Diego with an organization called Comedy Heights. Those are 2 shows, Friday and Saturday, at 2 different venues. You can find more information at ronplacone.com. Those shows are actually free, but it's recommended you need to make a reservation ahead of time. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Don't go anywhere because the patron stream is going to start in just a moment as soon as I end this and then start another stream. And I will get to all the super chats and Rockfin tips at that time. So please do leave one if you are able, and or you can just wait and then leave one when we start the new stream. You know, it's pretty cash, but the chat is going to start in just a moment. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace, love, and a general strike. See y'all in a minute.